Hello everybody, my name is Neil and I'm the founder of my website, which is IELTSwheel.com. And today I would like to help you to write this wonderful essay. And this essay is taken from Cambridge Book 15, Test 1. Now let's read and analyze this question in detail. In some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important for people. Why might this be the case? Do you think this is a positive or negative situation? Okay, so before writing an essay, it's very important to make a plan. Now, we have two questions. The first question is, why might this be the case? Okay, so why means that the examiner wants us to provide at least two reasons. Okay, so reason one, and then we have to explain, and then reason two, and then we need to explain. Now, you don't want to provide only one reason, you want to provide at least two reasons. Okay, so why might this be the case? Okay, and then do you think this is a positive or negative situation? Okay, so for example, in my case, I will say, well, this is a positive trend because it's easier to write an essay saying that something is positive rather than negative. Okay, so when you are taking your IELTS exam, it's very important just to highlight some keywords. In this case, I'm highlighting the word positive. And here, I have to write some keywords for the first reason and some keywords for the second reason. Okay, so for example, I might say that the ownership of a house is a valuable investment. Okay, so I can just write a valuable investment, and that's it. That's all I need to do. And then I also need to come up with the second reason. Okay, so for example, I might say that owning a house enables an individual to carry out alterations. All right, so just alterations. Okay, alterations basically means changes. Okay, you can change your house, you can create extra rooms, you can enlarge your rooms and so forth. Okay, and also I need to remember that I should always mention the fact that this trend is positive. Okay, here we go. So now, as you can see, why I have the first reason, I have the second reason, and I've already highlighted the keyword positive. Okay, so now I'm 100% ready to start. Okay, so first of all, I need to write the introduction. Okay, now what do I need to include in the introduction? Firstly, it's very important to write a general trend. Okay, a general trend. Okay, you can also say it's a kind of like a background statement. Okay, a background statement. That means that something is true not only in one particular country, but across the world. Okay, and in my first sentence, I have to basically paraphrase some keywords given in this essay prompt. So here we have two possible options. The first option is owning a home. Okay, so this is the first option. And the second option is renting one. Okay, and it's clear that here it says in some countries owning a home rather than renting one is very important. So I have to support the idea of owning a home. Okay, and I have to say that it's a positive trend, and then I have to provide two reasons. So in my very first sentence, basically I need to include both of these aspects, not only one, but both. Okay, so how can we do it? We can do it by creating a complex sentence. Okay, so for example, let me show you. Although a vast, let's say, number of people across the world rent houses, the ownership of accommodation, okay, just a second please, has become one of the major, let's say, life goals for whom? For most adults. Here we go. Now, I have created a complex sentence using the word although. Okay, so although something, comma, something. Okay, now, although a vast number of people, a vast number of means a lot of, but I don't want to write a lot of, I don't want to write many, I don't want to write lots of or heaps of. Why not? Because I want to sound very academic. Okay, so I want to write a vast number of. Next, across the world means around the world. Rent houses. Okay, here we go. So renting one, so rent houses. That's exactly what I've done. And then okay, let me just highlight this. Okay, the ownership of accommodation. Okay, now look at this. Owning a home, and I've just paraphrased. Ownership of accommodation, okay, which means home, has become one of the major life goals for most adults. Okay, and I'm using a complex grammar here. The present perfect, has become. Okay, not is, but has become. So number one, we have although, we have has become. Okay, and that's how we can impress the examiner. Plus we have complex words here, which is awesome. And I have mentioned both options, so rent houses and what else, the ownership of accommodation, okay, has become one of the major life goals. Why? Because if they believe that it's important, then I have just paraphrased saying that the ownership of accommodation has become one of the major life goals for most adults. See that? It's a complex sentence which sounds really great and can definitely impress the examiner. Okay, now what's the next sentence? The next sentence is called thesis statement. Thesis statement basically means our position, okay, what we believe is true, okay, because the question is, do you think it's a positive or negative situation? And then also the examiner wants to see the first reason and the second reason. So this is our plan, and that's exactly what I need to include here. Okay, now how can I do it? Okay, let's just come up with a beautiful sentence. Here we go. It is worthwhile analyzing several reasons for this trend, which I believe is positive. All right, now look at this carefully. It is worthwhile, which means it's important. Remember, after worth while, it's important to use ing, okay? So it's worthwhile analyzing several reasons, because the question is, why might this be the case? Okay, and therefore analyzing several reasons for this trend. What kind of trend? This trend, owning a home rather than renting one, is very important. Okay, what kind of strategy am I using? I'm using referencing. Referencing means that you are trying to refer back to the statement without repeating it. Okay, so I'm trying to use referencing here, and then which I believe is positive. Why? Because the question is, do you think this is a positive or negative situation? Okay, and here, which I believe is positive. Now, you might ask a question, Neil, why did you put a comma here? Okay, why? Because it's a non-defining relative clause, meaning that basically we can remove this part, right? And it's worthwhile analyzing several reasons for this trend. Full stop, that's it. But here I want to give some extra information. So when you want to give some extra information to the sentence that you have just written, okay, make sure to use a comma here. So which I believe is positive. That's it. So as you can see, my introduction consists only of 2 sentences, a general trend, a background statement, and the thesis statement. And if the examiner looks at this part, looks at my introduction, he'll say, yeah, sweet as Neil, you have answered each part of this essay prompt. Okay, you deserve a high band. Okay, so here we go. I've already completed the introduction. Now the next part is body paragraph 1. Body paragraph 1. Okay, so now what do I need to include in this body paragraph 1? First of all, I need to provide the first reason, okay? And the first reason is a valuable investment. And I have to clearly explain the first reason in the first body paragraph, okay? So that the examiner will understand it. And also, I need to reinforce my position saying that it's a positive situation. So I have to mention the first reason and to say that it is positive, okay? Why? Because that's exactly what the examiner wants me to do. Okay, now let's just see how I can do it. Firstly, the ownership of a house is a valuable investment. And this is a reasonable choice to make. Here we go. Look at this beautiful sentence, okay? So the first sentence, by the way, is called the topic sentence, okay? The topic sentence. So the topic sentence must have the central idea, the main idea of the whole paragraph. Okay, so what is the first reason? A valuable investment, and I have included this one, right? The ownership of a house is a valuable investment. Okay, and then the question is, do you think it's a positive or negative situation? And this is a reasonable choice to make. Okay, reasonable means smart, wise choice to make. And remember here, we need to also to put a comma because we're talking about basically 2 different things. Okay, so here we're talking about the ownership of a house. This is the first idea, and this is a reasonable choice to make. So we're talking about something else, and plus this is our personal comment. Okay, and the 4 we need to put a comma here, and this. So I'm referring back to this. Okay, so and this means and this ownership is a reasonable choice to make. The examiner will look at this and say, okay, well, Neil has answered the first part. Okay, he has addressed the first part of the essay prompt, and plus he has mentioned the fact that it's a positive trend. Sweet as. Now let's move on. Okay, next, the next part is the examiner wants to see a very clear example. Okay, so he doesn't want to see any philosophy. He wants to see a relevant example which supports the central idea. So the question is, how can we do it? Okay, so here we need to include a relevant example. I need to prove to the examiner that I'm correct. Now, how can I do it? Okay, let's just create a beautiful example and then we will analyze it in detail. So for example, if an individual purchases an inexpensive house at $100,000. Yep, here we go. Let's say we're on the outskirts of a city. Next, the value of this property is likely to increase. 2 or 3 times over as, and then I have to explain why, as new roads let's say new roads, and then we can also say factories and businesses, okay, are introduced to the area. Okay, here we go. Now I can stop here and then I'll explain. All right, first of all, I just want to save it. Okay, so for example, so the examiner really wants to see that it's an example. If an individual, remember, if an individual, not you, okay? So lots of international students really like using the pronoun you. If you purchase, not you, but if an individual, if a person, or if one purchases, not you, I, or we, okay? So try to avoid using personal pronouns. Okay, so if an individual purchases, which means buys, an inexpensive house, okay, and here I'm just indicating the price at $100,000 on the outskirts of a city. On the outskirts means it's not the center of the city, all right? It's far away from the city center, on the outskirts of a city. Next, the value of this property, in this case, value means the price, okay, is likely to increase. So we're using is likely to when we want to make a prediction, okay, to increase, okay, 2 or 3 times over. 2 or 3 times over means that the value might be $200,000 or even $300,000. Okay, and then the examiner again wants to know why. Okay, as new roads, factories, and businesses are introduced to the area. Okay, so lots of international students don't write like a full explanation. Okay, they kind of like write to increase 2 or 3 times over and then stop. No, the examiner wants to know why. Why do you think the value of this house or of this property will increase? Because, okay, new roads and factories and businesses are introduced to the area. Okay, and then what? Now, the examiner wants to see the next sentence, and the next sentence is the result. Okay, so if this happens, what will happen next? If A happens, then we will get the result. Okay, and we need to talk about the result in detail. And what is the best way to write and to use the result in our sentence? Easy. We can use the keyword as a result. So as a result, the house owner has the potential to gain considerable profit upon selling the asset. Okay, here we go. Now, once again, first of all, we are talking about a particular situation. Now we're talking about the result. As a result, the house owner has the potential. Has the potential basically means can, okay? Has the opportunity. To gain here means to get. You don't want to write the word to get because to get is slang. But to gain sounds much more formal. Considerable profit, okay, which means significant, much profit. Upon means after selling the asset. Remember, upon plus ing, upon selling, upon going, upon graduating from university. Okay, so upon plus ing. The asset means basically the property, okay, his house. So we need to paraphrase. We don't want to write the word the house over and over again. We need to show a wide range of vocabulary to the examiner in order to impress him, okay? Now, what is the next sentence? The next sentence is here we are talking about two aspects, owning a home and renting one. Okay, so we need to remember this, and we need to focus on the second aspect and to say that it's very difficult to do it when a person just rents a house. Okay, so we can do it. Now, how can we do it? Basically here, we should just write, let's say, the opposite situation. Okay, the opposite situation. Okay, so we can just do it something like, by contrast, those who prefer to rent might have to pay a higher rental charge in subsequent years. Okay, which can be a financial burden. Okay, sorry, burden. All right. Now, try to use the word by contrast when you want to show the contrast, like the opposite situation. So those who prefer to rent. So now I'm referring to those who just rent. So those who prefer to rent might have to. You can also write may or might have to, which means need to pay a higher rental charge. Higher, the highest. Okay. Rental charge means the amount of money you pay for your house when you live there in subsequent years, which means over the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. Okay, and then now I want to give my personal opinion, just to give some comments. Okay, so therefore we need to use a comma, and then which can be a financial burden. Again, I'm using a non-defining relative clause, okay, using the word which. And most IELTS examiners really like seeing relative clauses in your sentences. Okay, that's it. I have finished writing my first body paragraph. So once again, you have to write the topic sentence. Okay, so you have to indicate your central idea. Then you have to provide a relevant example. Then talk about the results and talk about the opposite situation. That's it. Now, I need to focus on the second body paragraph. Okay. Now, what do I need to do again? I'm going to provide the second reason. Okay. And again, I need to write a beautiful topic sentence. The topic sentence which will include my second reason. Okay, now what is our plan? The plan is alterations, meaning that you can make alterations, you can make some changes to your house. Okay, and that's exactly what we need to include. Now, how can we do it? Secondly, owning a house enables one, or let's say enables an individual to carry out alterations, which is rather difficult to do when renting. Okay, now before I just wrote firstly, okay, and then I provided the first reason. Now I'm using the word secondly because I want to use the second reason. Next, remember, you don't want to write second, only secondly, okay? Because this one sounds much more formal. Next, you don't want to write at second, use only the word secondly. Once again, so make sure to use the word secondly if you want to impress the examiner, okay? You can also write in addition to this, no problem, or furthermore. Owning a house, okay, enables, which means give the opportunity, an individual to carry out alterations. To carry out basically means to do, okay? Like alterations means changes. And then, which is rather difficult to do when renting. So once again, I always remember to include both of these aspects, okay, if I want to get a high band. If you miss this part, okay, so the examiner will think, hold on, how about renting one? Have you mentioned this? No. Okay, so he might not like it. So in order to make him happy, make sure to include both aspects. All right, again, what do we need to do? We need to focus on a relevant example. For instance, despite living in a 2-bedroom apartment, one can convert a garage or a balcony into a room to host relatives yep, okay, and friends, or gain an extra income. Okay, here we go. Now, we have already used the word for example. I don't want to write for example again, okay? And therefore I need to paraphrase by writing for instance and then comma. Now, again, I'm using a complex sentence using the word despite. Okay, so remember despite or in spite of, and then you must use ing, despite leaving. Okay, you can also write despite residing in a 2-bedroom apartment. Remember two-bedroom, not bedrooms. Why not? Because a two-bedroom acts as an adjective here. Okay, so my apartment has 2 bedrooms, but I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. One means a person. Again, you don't want to write the word you, okay, or we or I. Only one, or a person, can convert, which means transform, a garage or balcony into a room. Why? Again, it's very important to explain why. To host relatives. To host means that your relatives and friends come over to your house and you spend some time together, and then they might spend several nights at your house. Okay, so you host relatives and friends, or gain an extra income. Okay, so you can earn money by giving the opportunity to somebody to rent this room. Okay, so I have explained. Okay, so here before I said that owning a house enables individual to carry out alterations. Okay, and then I said to convert a garage or balcony into a room. I'm talking about the same thing. Okay, next, now again, I'm talking about the result. Well, I also want to use the phrase as a result here. No problem. As a result. Or I can just change it. Okay, I can also just write following this, which means after this, as a result of this, the owner, but not a tenant, will have a more living space and be able to accommodate more people in the house. Okay, here we go. So I'm talking about the result. Following this means after this, the owner, but not a tenant. Okay, a tenant is somebody who rents a room. Again, I remember that I'm talking about two aspects. Okay, so owning a home and then renting one. So it's very important to indicate this. So the owner, but not a tenant, will have a more living space. Okay, so we are talking about the place where you live. So for example, if you live in your house, so your house has a living space, and then be able to accommodate more people in the house. In this case, accommodate means to allow people to live in your house. Okay, just to give them the opportunity to live in your house. So you accommodate more people in the house. Okay, so we're talking about the result of these actions. So the action is when somebody converts a garage or balcony into a room. Okay, so as a result, this person might accommodate more people here. Like before, we have mentioned the phrase like hosting relatives and friends. Okay, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So we're talking about the result. And then, okay, so again, we need to compare and contrast, right? So like we're talking about two aspects, owning a home and then renting one. So for example, in this case, again, if I want just to create a strong link to the essay prompt, I can just write the following sentence, okay? Again, remember, like our strategy is to talk about the opposite situation. Okay, so let me just copy and paste, and then I'll explain this in detail. In most cases, the letter has no choice in such a matter. Okay, so here you have to be careful. You don't want to say in all cases, okay, or no, you just want to say in most cases. The latter, okay, now the latter means the second person or the second object that we have mentioned. So here we said the owner, okay, and so this is the first one, and a tenant is the second one, and therefore the latter is referring to a tenant has no choice in such a matter. No choice means he doesn't have the opportunity to carry out alterations. Okay, in such a matter means in this case. Again, I'm referring back. We know what kind of situation we're talking about, and therefore I'm using referencing here. Okay. Now here again, this is more than enough basically. But if you want just to provide one more example, you can do that. Okay, like in my case, for example, if I want to get a high score, I want to write one more sentence. I want to provide basically one more specific example to prove that this reason is valid. So how can I do that? Okay, I'll just write here like let's say extra example. Let's say furthermore, if one owns a property, okay, one can transform rooms into a cafe, a barber shop, or a grocery outlet, which is a more complicated process when renting. Here we go. Now, I want to provide one more example, and therefore I'm using the word furthermore. You can also write moreover. If one means if a person owns a property, one can transform rooms into. Okay, so before I used the word convert. Now I don't want to use the word convert. I want to use the word transform, which means change rooms into a cafe, barber shop, or grocery outlet. Outlet means a small shop. And then again, I'm trying to compare. It's like which is a more complicated process when renting, meaning that when you are renting, it's very difficult to do it. Why not? Because this house doesn't belong to you. Okay, so that's it. Now, it's important to write the last paragraph, which is called conclusion. Now, what do I need to do in the conclusion? Okay, in the conclusion, again, it's very important to provide your personal opinion. Okay, so do you think this is a positive or negative situation? You have to mention this in the conclusion, and then you also have to remind of, like, you have to indicate these two reasons again in the conclusion. All right, that's exactly what the examiner wants to see, but you have to summarize. You don't want to write lots of details here. Okay, so you just want to write everything concisely. Now, how can we do it? Okay, based on the valid arguments outlined above, I'm convinced that the ownership of a house is a far better option than renting. Okay, here we go. So based on the valid arguments outlined above. So what am I doing? I'm referring back. Okay, so like, so the examiner, if you want to remember what kind of arguments I have mentioned, okay, go back to my previous paragraphs and read them. Okay, so this referencing can definitely help me to boost my score. Okay, so I'm convinced that, which means I firmly believe that. You don't want to write I think that, because it's a baby talk. Okay, everybody says I think that, I think that. You want to stand out, you want to be different from other IELTS candidates, and therefore you want to write I'm convinced that. Okay, the ownership of a house is a far better option than renting. Okay, so again, we have explained our personal position here, and now the examiner wants to know exactly why. We have to indicate these two reasons very quickly. Okay, so let me show you how to do it. The main reasons behind this are the opportunity to invest money in a valuable asset, to make alterations if desired. Okay, here we go. So the main reasons behind this, in this case, behind this means for this, are, okay, the opportunity, to invest money, okay, in a valuable asset. So again, I'm referring back to my plan, a valuable investment. And then in a valuable asset, and here it's right, and and then the second reason, and to make alterations if desired. Okay, alteration means changes. If desired means if you want to, but you don't want to write if you want to. You want to use if plus past participle, if desired, if required, if necessary. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. You can visit my website to get more information about the IELTS examination, and there are several courses that I have created which can help you to prepare for the exam. Thank you.